Good. Let's open up our Bibles to Ephesians chapter 2. Ephesians chapter 2, verse 14. Unless you're like Roy and you have to memorize, go ahead and open your Bibles there. God is good. I know it's New Year's. I hope everyone had a great holidays. I hope everyone had a great New Year's. And I really had one more lesson I really wanted to preach on our Christmas sermon, because what we've been looking at is the words that we see so much around Christmas time, right? Emmanuel, we looked at that word, God with us. But the word that we concentrated on was this word peace, right? Around Christmas time, I have it in my house, peace and joy, right? We have them up there, and they're like Christmas words so many times, right? Well, but we don't stop to think about, right, the birth of Jesus and those words and what the true meaning is for those words. Because I don't know if you're like me, but I've noticed I get so caught up in all the food and decorations and family coming and presents and, did I get what I asked for? I'm still waiting on my list I gave Jeremy. I haven't got it yet, but, we get caught up in all those things, but so many times we forget about, listen, the whole reason for the season is the birth of Jesus Christ. And not just the birth of Jesus Christ, but what did the birth of Jesus Christ really mean to the world? What does it really mean? What are we concentrating on? And most of the time, Santa Claus gets more attention than the birth of Jesus. And so the last 2 weeks, we were looking at this word peace. And it's a beautiful word, because the transition, the whole foundation of our study is this. Over 700 years before Jesus Christ was born, there was a prophecy that said this: a child will be born, and it says this: he will be the Prince of Peace. And then at the end of that context, it says this: and his peace will have no end. Right? And when Jesus is born, that the shepherd stands there and he says, listen, peace on earth. And we don't even think about it, because did war stop? No. Did its conflict stop in individual lives and no. I mean, I don't know if maybe y'all did, but I've noticed, there's always conflict. Man, look at our nation right now. That's why I don't want to move on, because I really feel like this idea of peace in the Bible and what it's talking about, what Jesus really brought. But, Christmas time, why don't we think about it? And the peace that Jesus brought is threefold, right? The first that I see of the peace of God is this: he brought peace of man, between man and God, right? The wrath of God comes because of sin, but because of Jesus, guess what? That wrath, that punishment, has been settled. Now we now have peace with God. A sinner like Ricardo, a broken sinner that messes up, can now have a relationship with God. Why? And I can go to bed at night even though I messed up yesterday. If I was perfect like God, I wouldn't have to worry about it. But you know what? I mess up, I go to bed at the end of the night, I'm not worried about it. Why? Because I have peace with God because of Jesus Christ. But the other thing that we looked at last week is this: that we also have the peace of God. But it's something that we have to go after. I mean, I don't know if you're like me, but things continue to happen in life. Life is full of conflict. Life is full of difficulties. Life is full of challenges. And sometimes we can get so consumed with all the things that are going on. Anxiety is through the roof in the United States of America. Right? I mean, a lot of times we just have anxiety because why? I think me and Debbie talked about it not that long ago. Like, okay, we just got through this, but then like the next thought that pops in your head is, okay, what's next? Right? Like, what's coming? Because if you're alive and you're in this world, guess what? There's going to be challenges. And that's so many times, those challenges, you know what they can do? They can rob the peace with us. Peace from us. And I don't know if you're like me, but man, I have finally learned, and that peace that I've been able to finally obtain in my life, that I can have peace, the peace of Christ, like we find in Colossians 15 or chapter 3 verse 15, is the peace of Christ that we can obtain in the midst of difficulties. That's what else he brought. That type of peace, man, that's a beautiful thing. Right? It's a beautiful thing to be able to obtain peace in the midst of trials. And that's only because of Jesus Christ. But it takes work. It takes something that we have to go take a hold of. But there was one more piece that I felt like is threefold. I wanted to touch on it today before I move on, even though it's a new year. I know I always do the New Year sermon. Is it's the peace among men. I think that's something that we all need to hear right now. The thing that Jesus brought was this. He brought the peace with God in spite of our sins. He brought us the peace of Christ, which we can experience even in the midst of difficulties and all those type. Matter of fact, in Philippians in chapter 4, verse 4 through 6, it says this. It says that peace of Christ surpasses all knowledge. Like there's this peace that we can obtain that everybody can look at and go, man, I have no idea how Bill can have peace right now with all the stuff that's going on in his life. But yet that's possible because of Jesus Christ and His birth and what He brought to us. But remember, God only works as hard as we work with Him, right? He works through our effort. He works. It's not easy. It's not easy. It's in this relationship. Everything is relationship. It's not book like, oh, okay, I got to do this and do that checklist. And we already missed it. It's about relationship. It's about relationship. It's about relationship. And as we obtain and grow in this relationship, guess what we start to do? We start to experience these things. Even though I had the peace with God because of my sins, I didn't have a good enough relationship with Him to understand it. I was going to bed going, man, I messed up. I'm probably going to hell today. I didn't have a tight enough relationship and understanding of God to have that peace. And then as you grow in your relationship with God, you start to experience like, man, I hate what's going on. But it's all right. Jesus Christ is sitting on the throne of God. He still loves me. He's still forgiving my sins. He's still going to send my loved ones and myself to go to heaven. So, you know what? I don't like the way the world is in all things that are going. But guess what? Jesus is still King. It's okay. I'm not going to stay up night worried about it. But peace among men is another thing that He brought. And in the first century, conflict, the things that we're looking at right now in our country, and all the division and anger and hatred and conflict, it's nothing new. It might be growing here in the United States, but guess how long it's been around? It always has. Between humans. And so this is what Paul's talking about here when we get to Ephesians in chapter 2. So the Prince of Peace, the peace is everlasting. Guess where it comes from? Jesus. And he says this in Ephesians chapter 2, verse 14. He says, for He Himself is our peace. Look at, he stops to tell us something here. Listen, now the problem that's happening is that they're in a church here and there's a lot of conflict. And the reason is this. There are Jews and there's Gentiles. Remember, the Jews have always had the Old Testament. They've always had the law. They've always had this idea of this learning of what it takes to have a relationship with God. And guess what happens? There's these other people that have been sacrificing the idols and doing all these pagan things and different. But they learn about Jesus too. But then guess what the gospel does? It brings these people together, and it's not easy, right? I don't know if you've ever realized this, but sometimes when you get like people together, there's conflict. Like, people can just be difficult, man. I'm just going to be honest. I mean, I'll put myself out there. We think different. We're just different people. We've been raised differently. We talk about even in relationships and even in marriages. Why is marriage so hard? Because you have two people that have been raised in two different families with two different ways and they've had shape and two different thinkings, and then they come together and this person thinks this is the right way to think. This person thinks this is the right way to think, and now we're trying to make these people one. It's a challenge. It's a challenge. Guess what? The church is the same way. We got people coming from all over and different thinking and families and all these type of things. And you know what I've learned as being a missionary and being at different places and trying to grow churches? You know, it can also be a challenge as I look at what Paul's talking about. Sometimes bringing church together and unchurched people. Like when we went to Mexico, we started bringing people in off the street who've never been to church, and it don't look the same. It don't look the same. And you challenge yourself. Here it's really a big challenge because all these Gentiles come and guess what? They all love Jesus. They all love Jesus. They all want to follow him. But guess what happened? They don't think the same. They don't look the same. They may not even smell the same. I don't know, but Paul's trying to remind them of some things because they're having a lot of fighting that's going on in the congregation. And he says this, I want you to know something though. For He Himself, He is our peace. Where does peace come from? It comes from Jesus Christ. That's where it's going to come from. And I love the way he says this. He says he himself is our peace. He's not saying that like Jesus is imposing and commanding peace. He says it's coming from within. Like it's the thing that's supposed to draw people together. And I think about, here's the difference. I think about how sometimes an authority will impose peace. Like over in the Middle East, how many times has there been all this conflict over there? And what happens? The powerful United States and other countries get together and they basically sit down and say, listen, y'all need to get along. And they make them sign a paper. They say, hey, listen, this is a peace treaty. These are the terms. And they basically impose their will and say, hey, sign this. Like, we're going to go peace. We're going to impose this. And people agree. They say, okay, guess what? We're in peace now. And how long does it normally last? Not very long. Until the next person throws a rock, right? And let's be honest, in our relationships, sometimes that's how it is too. We call it truce until the next time someone says the wrong thing, then boom. But he's saying, no, listen, Jesus Christ himself, he is our peace. Here's the truth. Where are you looking for your peace? Where are we getting our peace? I've learned, I'm a pretty old man now, I'm 46 years old. What I've learned is peace is beautiful, man. Like peace in a world full of conflict and it's hectic and difficulties. And sometimes I'm running 1,000 miles an hour. But guess what, man? That peace, it's beautiful to be able to sit there and experience peace. But where are we looking for it? I remember when I was in Mexico, man, being a missionary was one of the most challenging things I ever done. And I remember there's times where, man, you finally have a weekend to take off to the beach like 3 hours away and just sit there and forget about everything. And it was nice, man. I mean, found some peace for a few days. But guess what happened? Man, Monday we go back to work. Hectic, conflict, difficulties, challenges, people. It just, guess what? It started right back up. Man, listen, he's trying to help them to understand something. For he himself is our peace. Man, we can only find it in Jesus. If we start to find this peace in Jesus, this peace that brings people together, this peace that we have in the midst of trials, man, that has to be your source. It has to be from him. He has to be the sole purpose. We can look for peace in other things. But man, where's the foundation? Where's the source? Where's that thing that you're drawing that peace from? He's trying to help them understand this. For he himself, for Jesus Christ, he is our peace. Because this peace comes from within, and what this peace does is it's drawing people together. It's supposed to be drawing people together. He says this. He's talking about Jews and Gentiles. He says, for he himself is our peace, who has made the two groups one and has destroyed the barrier and dividing wall of hostility. You got to understand the Old Testament to understand what he's saying. Is, in the Old Testament there was that temple, and that's where people worship God. That's where all the things of God were happening. And there was an inner court, and then there was a wall, and then there was an outer court. Right? And Gentiles, other nations were able to come and hear about God. Like, who is this God? And what's going on over there? And they could come to the temple. But guess what? There was a wall. You can't, if you're not a Jew or you're not a proselyte or you've converted, you can't pass this wall. Like, you have to be over here. And that wall was really a representation of sin. Like, there is a barrier, something that's stopping you from coming over here into the inner court and experience the presence of God. But you know what that wall did? It created hostility. Like, wow, them Jews are better than us. Like, we can come here, but we can't enter into there. But here was the problem. The Jews were supposed to be bringing people to God, but guess what they were doing? They were looking at like, you guys are dogs out there. Like, look at us. We're the people of God. We're here in the inner court, y'all. Y'all can come over here and look at it, but y'all aren't allowed, or we're allowed, right? And that created a lot of hostility. It caused a lot of anger. It caused a lot of racism. Right? There was a lot of racism. The Jews looked at the Gentiles and said, man, those people are just dogs. Look at, they sacrifice to idols. They do all these pagan things. They turn their nose up to them. And how'd that make the Gentiles feel? That they're going to like the Jews? Man, there's hatred towards the Jews. Hate them. They think they're better than us. Why would I want to go over there and learn about their God anyway? And instead of bringing people to God, guess what it did? Push people away from God. It was never supposed to be that way. You know what? Sometimes the differences among people, that's what it does. It causes hostility. Right? It causes they don't think different. They look different. All those type of things. And he says, no, but Jesus Christ, know what he does? He broke that wall down and he brought those people together and he gets rid of that hostility. This Jesus, as he comes to the world, he's a God that brings, Jesus, he brought peace among men. And as we come together, that's what it's all supposed to be about. Look what he says. Look what he says further down. I love this. I feel like I need to hear this so much. Is by setting aside in his flesh. So it took his body. It took his life. This was the cost of peace, right? It says setting aside in his flesh the law with his commandments and regulations. Remember, when he died on the cross, all the Old Testament, it was nothing. It was done away with. It was fulfilled. But look what it says. His purpose was to create in himself one new humanity out of the two, thus making peace. Man, now here's what I want us to think about. This is where Ricardo got hit as I was thinking about Christmas. I was thinking about the birth of Jesus. I was thinking about bringing his peace. But here's what I thought about. What was the cost of this peace? Number one, it says it was his life. His life came. But here's what's beautiful thing about this. It says his purpose. I want you to think about this for a minute. Jesus Christ, who is God in the flesh, he's God in the flesh, leaves heaven and comes to the earth, is born in this manger, right? We had this nativity scene, right? He's born in a barn where there's animals. He lives this life that we watch, a homeless life, a poor life. He's beaten and spit, all the things that he goes through. But man, he had a purpose. There was something that he had in mind. And he says this, man, I want to create a new humanity. I want to open the door so that everybody can come together in this body, in this Christ Jesus. There can be absolute harmony and peace. And for this to happen, man, this is what he had in mind. If his purpose was peace among men, if his peace was unity among men, and it cost him his life in order to get it, what type of priority as we as followers should we be putting that on ourselves to maintain that peace? To maintain it. Like, how important should it be? How top of the list should it be, this peace that we are experiencing among other people? Man, for me, I think, man, it needs to be may need to be at the top of my list. And I tell you, I've been doing this a long time, and I'm embarrassed to tell you the things I've got into conflict over. Right? I've been missionary when we started a new church, and man, I see conflict. They started over like, hey, what color are we going to paint the walls? Are we going to have a projector? Like, we'd like to have a couch in the foyer, and I could be this color. No, that would be terrible. You know? I mean, just little things have caused conflict and difficulty. Let's be honest. I think we've all had our feelings hurt in church, have we not? I think we've all had things that maybe we'd like to see this and it doesn't happen, and then we kind of feel like it hurts our feelings or whatever. But man, think about it. Jesus, his whole purpose was to come and to create this new humanity, this new love, this new peace among men. And guess who it's up to maintain that peace? It's really up to us. He gave his life for it. It says it was his purpose to make this new humanity. Listen, it doesn't matter. Here's the beautiful thing what the church is supposed to be. It doesn't matter what your race is. It doesn't matter how much money you have. It doesn't matter your background. Here's a powerful one for me. It doesn't matter how dysfunctional your family is. It doesn't matter any of those things. I say that, my dad said right there, right? He's sleeping in here. You know what I mean? It don't matter. Any of those things don't matter. This Jesus, what he does is he brings people together who would never be together. I don't know about you, but I come from a totally different background. I come from a totally different world. And I come into the church, and there's times I've been around people and realized, man, if it wasn't for Jesus, I would never be around these people. Like, I'd be out in the street. Like, I wouldn't be. But man, this is what Jesus does. He brings people together from all different walks of life, and he brings peace, and he brings this common goal and this common love. I'll never forget when I went to Romania. My first mission trip, I went to Romania, and I got there. Man, everybody speaks like 5 languages, right? Because the countries are so small. Like, people go different countries to work. Here we go different cities. They'll go to different countries. So like kids grow up, they know 4 or 5 languages. And I got invited to this preacher conference. I said, Ricardo, you should come. The other missionary, he needs a translator, but you'll probably be able to understand. And I said, well, I don't know Romanian. They said, yeah, but it's real close to Spanish. I said, I don't know Spanish. You know what I mean? I have no idea, right? They're like, why don't you know Spanish? I said, I'm going to ask the little guy over there doing there. But I said, I don't know, I just know English, right? But they thought it was the craziest thing. But I tell you, I spent time with these people, and I had no idea what they were saying most of the time. But I can tell you this, there was this love, and it was like I was with my family, and I couldn't even understand. We were talking with our hands most of the time, you know. A lot of them knew English, not everybody, but it was like, that's what Jesus does. He brings this peace, and he brings this love that we'd never be experienced. I've never been in another country around people that I can't even communicate with. Yeah, I knew they loved me, and I loved them, and there was this beautiful peace and things that were around us, just as we sat around. Food is another one to bring people together, but it was good stuff. But it was beautiful, man. That's what Jesus Christ does. And as we close here in 2022, I want us to think about something. I've been thinking about this. Man, we are living in a world full of conflict. We are living in a world full of anger. We're living it's getting to the point of hatred and division. And it's over things that to me are just like, man, are we standing before God? Is these things really going to matter? I mean, people are siding with mass and vaccinations. The gospel's more powerful and all that. Here's the thing. Here's the question I have. Is the gospel power enough to bring people together with different political views? Let me tell you something. When that starts to happen, it's going to make an impact on the world around us. And the gospel is. That's what Jesus does. He brings people together who would never agree, and yet there can be peace among them. Why? Because of Jesus. We both love Jesus. I don't agree with you, but me and Roy don't agree on a lot of stuff. I mean, he's wrong, I'm right about a lot of stuff, but guess what? We love each other. We have peace, right? I mean, he seldom wants to punch me. But it's the truth. Like, that's what the gospel does. It's like, even though we don't look like each other, even though we don't agree with one another, even though we have different views, guess what? Man, we can sit around and have a good time. Jesus said this. I want us, as we set out in 2022, this idea of peace. I want us to think of something here that Jesus said. When he was leaving, he's sitting at the table. He's getting ready to go to the cross. Within 24 hours, he's washing his disciples' feet and serving them. He's saying the most important things that he can say, because that's what people do when they're on their deathbed. They tell you, like, hey, man, this is important. And he says this. He says, I want you to love one another the way I've loved you. He just washed their feet. He's getting ready to sacrifice himself. He says, I want you to serve and sacrifice one another. He says, I want you to love one another the way I loved you. And then he says this, the world will know you're my disciples. Listen, this world right now in our nation, even everywhere, is so filled with anger and conflict and division. And I don't know about you, is it easy not to get angry over the stuff that's happening? Maybe y'all it's easy. I don't even read the news no more. I like to stay away from it. You know what I mean? It can get your blood pressure going, right? But man, you know what the answer is? Peace and love. And the world look at it and go, man, you know what? I think these guys got the answer. I don't think they all agree with one another, but they love each other. And there's a peace that exists there. And I'm kind of tired of all this anger and conflict out here. I think I might come over here with these Jesus people and figure it all out. Experience some of it. Listen, God is good. I hope everyone had a good Christmas. I hope everyone had a good New Year's. As we sit out, I just want to challenge us to start thinking about our relationship with God, our goals and spiritual things, and how we can make an impact on the people around us. If there's anything we can do for it, if you need prayers, you need Bible study, you want to obey the gospel, listen, we'd love to sit down with you, not only today, but anytime during the week. Just let us know. This God is a good God. Please feel free to come as we stand and sing.